Hi everyone, welcome to the first BRYTER live build session. This is for people who perhaps already have experience on BRYTER or are new to BRYTER to learn about some interesting techniques and the kind of tools that you didn't think you could build, but you can build with BRYTER. My name's Josh Farmer. I'm a sales engineer. I've been with BRYTER for 4 years, just over, and have seen the product mature considerably in that time, and have quite a lot of experience building with customers and also prototyping for potential new clients looking to see what they can do with BRYTER. Today, what we're going to look at building or build is a task management workflow. Will be fairly basic, but we'll use some of the latest features and a few building practices that I regularly use. So yeah, I'm very excited to get started. If you have questions, don't hesitate to write in the chat. Let's make sure I can see it. And yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So this is going to be a build from the very, very beginning. So we are going to start with literally nothing. The only thing I have, just checking out, you can see my screen. Yes, you can. So the only thing I've done in preparation for this is to create the application called Task Manager. But as you can see, there is nothing to sort of go off. So we're going to build this from the very beginning. And what this tool will be able to do is intake, say, very basic requests and allow team members to collaborate. And also we're going to look at how we can achieve reminder functionality as well with our new scheduler. So I'll start off with a new module, and this will be my task intake, or new task, let's call it. And we'll be given our new module screen here. So I'm going to add a basic form for my new task. Now, I'm going to make this pretty basic, so we're not spending too much time on the building, the form building that is, but as you'll know, this could work with many different data types. So you could build long forms, short forms, depending on the information you want to capture. I'm actually just going to have a description box for this one. And I'm also going to, so I'll put this task description. I'm also going to have a due date. So this will be my date. And let's change the format. And we'll have an optional attachment as well. Okay, so fairly basic. This will be optional. Okay, so let's say create a task to manage workflow. Okay, so we can already look at this. I will actually change the theme to this Beeman theme, which I find quite nice. So it looks a bit more modern here. And you know what? I'm actually already going to publish this to live as it's a new application and nobody's using it. So I'm just going to go ahead straight away and publish this to live so I can do my testing in live. And set the theme there. All right. So here's our new task form here. So of course we now want to save it. So we're going to create a database directly from the module. So this is going to be the write to database action. We will configure a new database directly from here. I will call this tasks. And I'm going to generate these fields automatically from the form that I've built. So description, due date, attachment. Okay, and we'll do user full name, user email. Okay, and what that does is it allows me to create the database fields from the form. And when I create it, the mapping is already done. So it's a much faster way of creating databases to save my information. Of course, I might want additional information. So perhaps we want to have a task name. Okay, so I can actually edit this database directly, also from within the module editor. And actually, maybe rather than username, full name, etc., I'm just going to call this requester and request the email. Again, we'll actually just remove the new task label from these. We have our database configured. Of course, these are manual fields, so I would actually have to map something manually. We don't have a name, however, so that's something we need to take care of. Now, I could have this, I could add another field called task name, but as in the spirit of the AI phenomenon and trying to get the most out of AI, why don't we insert an action and ask AI to create a prompt? So to create a name for us. So actually, I'm going to use AI general prompt with text input. Okay, and I'm going to have an instruction to my assistant. So I will actually create a text value called it AI instructions for task name. So I can have a bit more workspace to write my instructions. So please, please read the following description for a task and give it a sensible name of no more than 3. Let's say no more than 5 words. Okay, and of course we will reference the description in there. Okay, and then we will key our instructions into our AI node here. So I'll call this task name, and then already we can put that task name answer from the AI into our database there. Okay. What I might also want to do is send an email or something like that. But for now, we're going to make it very basic, and we're just going to finish it there. So let's create a new result called task submitted. So task submitted. You will be notified of the next steps via Gmail. Okay, so very simple module. I'll publish that to live now. And why don't we go ahead and actually test it? So I am preparing for a live build and need a use case to demonstrate was using something like task management in review. Okay, we'll put the due date in for a couple of weeks' time, and I'm not going to upload an attachment. Okay, so task has been submitted. Of course, we don't have anywhere to actually view the task right now, so I'm going to create that as a second component of my application. So we've got our input form, intake form, and for this, I will create a view of the tasks. So I'll call this tasks Let's put all tasks. Okay, we create that and we will select our tasks database that we created and let's choose some fields. So I will do last update. I want the name as well, the description, the due date, perhaps the requester, and we'll put the attachment in last as well. Save that. Okay, and maybe the name actually goes at the front here. Save. Okay, and I can actually already look at the live link and hopefully, here we go, perfect. So we can actually see that our task has been created. We've got our AI generated name, the description, the due date, the requester, and there was no attachment. So that's fine. Now, of course, actually, now I've got two components. I'm going to publish these in one single application view. So that goes into my publish screen. And here we have a section to manage the sidebar items of our publish screen. So new task and all tasks are my two components. I want them both to display. I'm going to save my changes, publish to test, publish to live. So we have separate environments for our application. We're testing, doing all of the kind of test cases in the live environment as we haven't released this yet. But here we go, we've got our new task and we've got then our task view here. All right, so making steps already. So the next step in the process would be to actually review the task. So let's say the task is coming from Josh Farmer, but we actually want to then review it as a task manager. It could be an in-house lawyer for legal requests, someone who's responsible for reviewing contracts, if it's a contract tool, etc. So we're going to play the role of the reviewer. We need to build an application for them. So for this, I will actually create another component, and this will be a module, and I will call this review task. Okay, so this now needs to call in from the database the task that we created. So let's read from a database, it's action here from the task, and we'll call it get task information. We need to then reference this and we need to find the ID basically of the task. So that would be the unique identifier, which is in our database. So I can link to it directly from the node here. So we get this ID. We're looking at the live data. We get this ID here. So for this, we are going to assume that we are arriving into the module from somewhere that isn't just a link, because we actually want to arrive from a task. So we will create a parameter called ID, okay, and this will essentially be populated with the ID of the task when we click on it. So I can then reference that as the way to fetch the information. And let's just create a view then of that task. So maybe we put the name here. Okay, and this could be a header. We do one line break. Let's just do description. Okay, maybe we'll put the due date here. So I'm just searching, using my at key to reference the values and then typing into search. Let's say requested by. Then we put our requester. Okay. And so on and so forth. Okay, so we create a basic view of the task information. This could also be a table as well. It doesn't have to be in this format. I'll also do one for the attachment. Attachment here. Cool. So what do we do from here? Well, just give this a name, review task. So maybe we want to create a set of actions for the reviewer to do. So maybe they want to, so we'll call this action. Maybe they want to assign the task. Okay. Maybe they want to add information. Okay, let's start from there. So it's a multi-input set action. So if they assign the task, then we want to create a list of people that they can assign the task to. So I have actually pre-prepared a Excel of fictional employees. They've all got my email so that I'll receive the notifications, but I'm going to use this as my list. So how do we do that? Well, if I normally when I'm working on an app, I'll have multiple tabs open. So I go to another tab so I can keep this open here, and I will just click back into my Task Manager application, and then go to databases, and I'm going to create a database from here called, let's say, employees. Let's just keep it simple, and let's create that. So the fields I have for my employees is the name, first name or nickname, perhaps, and the email. We also have things like role and so on if you wanted to filter just based on certain tasks. We'll just keep it simple for now. So hit save. So I've created my database, and now I can actually just import this in. So I'll go into the live environment. I'm going to import my fictional employees, and I hit my first hurdle. This needs to be saved as a CSV. So I just quickly save this as a CSV. There we go. And I will load that in. And here we go. So we've loaded in our employees. Okay, so I'll go back to my module here. So as well as get the task information, I actually want to get the employee information as well. So I'll insert an action, read from database, select employees, and this time, rather than the individual record, I'm going to filter the records to get basically all of them, and I'll just clear the filters and sort by first name or name, and make sure that's alphabetical. Okay, and I'm just going to call this employees. Okay, so now what I can do is I can actually add another input, single select, and we call assign task. Okay, and let's do assign task as the label, and through 3 dots, we'll use the options from a collection and select our employees, and we want to display the name. We also want this to be a drop down. We also want to only show it if the user selects assign task. Okay. The other thing is default values. So as this is an existing task that we're doing this module for, we actually want to have the default value set to the assignee, perhaps that maybe it could be the requester to start off with, or actually we could create another field in our task database called assignee and assignee email that we use to pre-populate that that field with. So if I go to my configuration and go to call this assignee as well as assignee email, okay, and actually let's do assignee first name as well, because this is useful for email notifications. Okay, so I've added those fields. I'll just quickly refresh, and you can see my 3 new fields here. Okay, so I'll go back and I'll make sure that this is pre-populated with assignee name here. Okay, so if I then have assigned my task, we want to create an option for add information. So this will be a text block. Maybe it's a comment. So let's just go with that comment. Okay. And let's do show conditionally if add information. Okay. And also let's duplicate this because it has the same condition, but it will be for a document. So upload attachment. Okay. Again, we'll make this optional. Okay, as we see, we already have the condition there. So we've got two outcomes of our review. Essentially, we've got assign the task or add information. So actually, what I would want to do is have a kind of branch for each outcome here. So if I create an empty action, which is basically just used for structuring the module, we'll just call it action or something. And then this means I can actually like organize what happens after depending on the task. So let's say we have a status, for example, which is assigned. So I will have actually at the top, I'll put it here, a variable called status. And this might change. So we might have two scenarios. So in scenario one, where they select assign, yeah, then maybe we update the status to assigned. In scenario two, and I can just copy paste this, it might be more information requested. And in fact, I'm just going to put this in progress. I can also add notes here. So I can see from the blocks which one is which. Okay, so let's put the condition here for add information. Okay, and when we assign the task, we obviously also need to save or update the task itself. So this will be update task, and this is a write to database. Okay, and I will select task from here. This ID will be the same ID as the task ID that we used to get the information. And the only information I'm actually updating here is the assignee. So I use my @ key, I click review task, find the assigned task action within there, or input or selection. And then it will be the name, it will be the email, and then the first thing, I'll just search for that here. Okay, and we're also missing now our status. So generally, I'm always adding fields as I go. Sometimes fields like statuses, it's quite easy to preempt or foresee the need for that. But it's just as easy to add it on the fly as well. Okay, so I can just use my actual reference there and update my status. So let's do the end result, and we'll say task assigned. And let's also say assignee has been informed by email. Okay, of course, for this to happen, we'd actually have to put an action, which is send email. And this will be to the assignee's email. We can say new task assigned. We can perhaps reference the name of the task in the subject, and then here, and then this is where that first name value comes in handy. You have been assigned task task management application. Okay, let's just keep this fairly straightforward, because notifications we can obviously spend lots of time on, but we want to focus on the rest of the workflow here. All right, so we might also put a link in here, okay, and then we could actually just copy and paste this here. Oops. And there we go. Maybe make that bold. Okay, so that would be the assignment action. And now we're going to add something else, which is the add information. Now, this is a bit more complex because we don't necessarily want to overwrite the original attachments. So let's say we have the description and the attachment as fields against the task. We don't, as I just said, want to overwrite those because it's useful information. So what we can do is we can actually create another database called actions. So if I go into my new action and I'm going to say, let's say, save action, and let's do add to database. And I'm going to configure a new database, and I'm going to call this tasks. And actually, I'll do this normally actions because actions are related to tasks. So I'll just create manual fields. So this would be like action itself. Let's go for comments and let's go for attachment. Okay, we've already got date and time. Let's file and let's do user. And we will also do user email. Okay. Now, something really important when you're actually creating, let's say, an action that will be related to a task is to also save the ID of the task so it knows which task it is actually an action of. So I will add another one here called task ID. And that should generally do it. Of course, there's many more different things you could add, but let's just create that one for now. Okay. Now, the action could be, let's say, multiple different things. It could also be a variable. So I'm going to create another variable here under status with action. Okay. And again, this will update in various cases. So I choose to update. This will be added information. Okay. And let's copy paste this again, and this one will be assigned task because actually what we're going to do now is not just save the additional comments and the attachment, but we'll create an action for every single activity that happens on the task. So from creation to assignment to adding information. So let's, for this one, we're going to do the action in here, which will in this case be added information. We'll do the comments, which is going to be the comments from the task here. It will be the attachment. The user, we're going to, we will do, I will just do my user information actually. Okay, and most importantly here is the task ID. All right. Okay, so that's saving the action. We'll do a new result from this. I don't think we need a notification. We could if we wanted. And let's get the information added. Thank you. Information has been added to task. It's the task name. Okay. Task information name dash. And why don't we just put the user given name here to make it a bit more friendly. Okay. And just update the names of these blocks to the action for more visibility as a builder. And we just want to add then, I'm going to copy paste this save action. And I'm going to just basically keep the action, but this would be different. It would be assigned task. The comments actually, are not relevant right now because we don't ask for comments. It probably makes sense to, actually, to be honest, because we want to give the person context. But let's leave that for now, just in the interest of time. So maybe the comments are something like assigned task to, and then assignee name. So we've got kind of some audit here of what actually happened, and that's it for there. So we're actually saving every action as a kind of audit log almost. Okay, so just taking stock of where we are, I would like to create one more action, which is to update the status. Okay, so let's go update status. And this is how you can kind of see how you can add different actions to the review process. So, for example, update status would basically make a drop down appear, status, and we'll call it status, and it, for example, could be new, in progress, completed. Okay, and we can then basically copy paste. Let's say we're going to copy paste this one because there's a save. Okay, and I can copy paste this whole block here, and this time it will be updated status, right? Sorry, the status would be the actual status. Apologies. Here. Where did we put it? Update status even. Update status. Okay, the action would be updated status, and you could even do from get the status from the task info here. To, and then new status here. Okay, and this would be then our audit trail. Okay, so I think that's good. I'll just delete these copy here, and let's just again copy paste this result, and we'll just do status. The status has been updated for task. Okay, and we just then copy this. So as the kind of number of actions get larger, you can kind of just build more branches, but generally it's more maintainable to be able to visualize and have things kind of, the repeatable patterns essentially. So this would be if we update the status. Okay, cool. So let's have a look at that. So I'm going to publish this to live. Okay, and also just remember my Beeman theme. Okay, I've actually set the application to this theme by default anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. And before we can test this, we need to add this review task to our data view. So if we see actually, if we click into here and we go to actions, I'm just going to call this open for simplicity, and it's going to have a target module, which is the review task. And you can see that parameter that we gave that tells what ID to look for is displayed to us here. Okay. So save this and we shall test it. So let's go to our task manager and just refresh it. Okay. And here's our actions, so we'll open it. Okay, and there's our task name at the top here. We've got our task information. The attachment is blank. And okay, already I see something I need to fix, which is that the status is always showing. Maybe that's something I want to have in future, but for now I want it as a separate action. Also, it doesn't have a default value. But actually, to be honest, that is because we only added the status later on. So let me fix the first thing, which is going to be to go back to my review task module. And we will just change this so conditionally, it's only showing when I update the status. Okay, and already we should actually, if I click around here, we can see that updated already. So I can assign, and I've got my drop down in alphabetical order. I can add information, add comments. Okay, again, this is a thing I'm kind of fixing it on the fly. I've noticed that my comments box doesn't have line breaks, so I can just add that in, publish that. Okay, and sort of just click around the options and you should see, yeah, there we go, it's updated. So let's assign it. So I'm going to assign it to, maybe actually we should update the status first to give it a value. So we hit next, status updated. We actually do need to add the status column to our view as well. So if we just go to fields and status, the cool thing about this actually is we can color code them. So if we have a, I've got a color palette here for new. So it's a known value. So let's do new is blue. Let's do assigned is did I copy that correctly? No. There we go, this sort of yellowy color. We'll do in progress as this kind of orange. And let's do completed. And we're also going to do overdue, which will be the final part of this build, which is to do the what happens when a task goes overdue. So that would be quite naturally red. Okay, and we can confirm that and save. All right, so let's again refresh our task manager. We can see it here. Okay, so to get some more data going, I'm actually going to add a new task. Before I do that, I'm actually going to also just add my audit trail feature into my new task creation form. So again, it's quite simple. We've already created the database. So I would just even just copy and paste this save to database, switch the database to an actions database, and then created task would be my action. Comments, I guess, could be the description. Attachment could be the attachment. User, of course, would be the user, full name, user email, and then the task ID, most important, would be the ID that's generated after the task is saved. So just leave that. Okay, and this means that I'm also capturing the action of creating the task. So you get a full, let's say, audit history. So now I've done that, let's create a new task. So I need to review an NDA with a potential customer, or we can share data with them to properly evaluate the product. Okay, we'll set due date, and this time let's add a file. Okay, so we've got some test NDAs here, sample NDAs, and let's go ahead and update that. Okay, go to my task. Again, okay, so already noticed something that I should have fixed, which is when I save the task, we also need to update the status to new. Okay, I'm not going to create another task, but what I can do is while I'm building, straight away I could just go into the database and just add that value manually here. Okay, so I get a updated set of test data. And let's open that up. Okay, you see our title, we've got our description, this time an attachment, and we're going to assign it. Now, one thing that's missing is actually the visibility of the actions. So we need to actually create like an audit trail so we can see all of our team's actions. So let's do that quickly. We are going to use the read from database to get all of the tasks or actions for that particular task. So we go to our task actions, we're going to filter records, but instead of having a blank filter here, we are going to filter where the task ID equals the task ID here. And we're going to say get all task actions, right? And last update makes sense. But then we also want to display that in a certain way. So for this, actually create a value called a text block value, and I'll call it action history. Right. Okay. And I will go into my thing here, and it will create a collection block. So what I'll do is I'll actually just delete all the start again. So it would be user on, and let's do the created date, and then we'll do let's make that in bold, and we're going to do a new line, and we shall do action. Yeah, make sure that's not bold. Let's do I think it's comments. Let's do attachment. All right, that looks good for now. And we want to have kind of some separation between them. So for that, I just use dash separator here. Okay, and this actually then becomes my action history. Okay, so I can straight away add that maybe to the bottom of here, or maybe I add it to here. We could also put it in an info block, so it doesn't always display. Okay, and we just simply reference that in here, and that's it. So if I now go back into my task view here, and let's go ahead and go to our NDA demo, NDA example. Okay, we've got our action history, and you can see I've got the task creation, and the attachments, comments, etc. Let's assign this to someone. So assign it to Casey here. Hit next. Casey gets an email, which I should also receive, as I am the recipient for all of these people currently. But if I go into my task view, here we go, here's the email. You can see it's now assigned in here. If I open it again, okay, you can see now we've got another action, and it's the latest action on top. Okay, so maybe I want to then like add some information. Let's put in here an updated version or something, and I can just go and drop an NDA or drop a document of some sort in here. Okay, next. Okay, that's added, and then if I go back into the task, okay, we've got this latest action. Of course, I am the user, so it's not actually showing the assignee's name here, but you can see this is actually a good way to actually store the documents as well as the action as well. Cool, so that is that one. Let's update the status to completed. Now, what I thought would be cool, and we do have time, so I'm going to go for it, which is to have a special action for when the status is gone to completed. Okay. So what I can do is I will, if I'm going to put in, let's do this, we'll do a value here, and we're going to call it AI instructions. Okay, and text block. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look at the task information below, right? And then I could actually just go ahead and just copy all of this here. Okay. Then I can say now look at the action history and pop that in there. And then say, give me a brief summary of what has happened on this task for completion. Let's only no more, let's say no more than 5 sentences. Okay. So this is going to be a condition. This will be an AI prompt. So we can put in action here, and it would be a general prompt with a text input here. The AI instructions go in here, and let's just call this completion notes. I'll call it AI completion notes. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and we will also, let's just save the action here. And this time we will, okay, let's do for, to keep things separated, we'll just do if status equals completed. Okay, and we'll keep these the same, but the only difference will be that we would perhaps add some completion notes here. Okay. And this would be the AI's response. And also, why don't we put the completion notes in here? Okay. And status from, yes, okay. Just change this slightly. Cool. And that's the completion notes. Fine. Okay, let's see how we go. So I'm going to update this. Maybe we should also just quickly put status here. A medium header. Okay, and then we're ready. So boom. And we'll update the status here to completed. Okay, and let's have a look. Let's add maybe let's add in here the completion notes field to our data view. Just add it to the end, perhaps. Okay, there we go. And you can see you've got a completion notes here, just detailing all the actions that happened. Of course, that would also be in the action history as well. Okay. Cool. So I'm aware of the time, and that gives us just time for one more thing, which is going to be scheduling. So what happens if a task goes past its due date? So what we do is we actually have a status check module, okay? And this can kind of, let's say, look for things, look for data in the databases, and then for each thing, for each item, perform a specific action. And this will be what we call a headless module, in that it won't have any user input nodes. So the first action is to get all the tasks. Okay, again, this would be filter records. And this time we want where status is not completed. Okay, let's just get all open tasks, we can call that. Okay, and then for each of those, we need to check the due date in relation to today's date. So the way that these actually work is we need to use two modules. One for the finding of all of the items, let's say. So this would be a simple get everything that's not completed. But then we need a module as well for the action. So let's say check overdue. Okay. Let's say overdue notification. So okay. So these two modules, they will work together. In that we will have a parameter again called ID. Okay, and we will then get the action. We'll get the task information. Okay, this we don't need, and this gives us some of the information we need regarding the task. But then we also need the value of today's date, which is going to be date value, and the date will be the day of the user interaction. So we'll just call that today. Okay. And then we want to have a condition that says if due date is on, or let's say before. If it's before, then we will update the status to overdue and send a notification. Okay, so here we would have a status value. Okay, called overdue. Okay, we will have an action which is send overdue notification. All right, and then this would be task overdue. Sometimes I like to just borrow things from other modules. So like, for example, the notification here, I can actually just go ahead and copy this whole thing. And rather than actually create a whole new one, I would just put that in there. And then you see some of the things are broken, but that's fine. We just reference the assignee email from here, the task name here. Okay, the assignee name here. So just sort of fixing the things that broke, the link's the same, and that is good to go. So we can, new result, just got it done. So it's not looked at, but then of course we only want to do this if, okay, so if the task info, the due date is before today, right? Otherwise, don't do anything. So that's good to go. That's my kind of overdue logic done. Oh, wait, no, it's not, because I actually need to update the status. So this would be our tasks, use our ID again. Status goes in here, so that will actually change it to overdue. So let's call this update task. Okay, and we publish this. So we can give this a little test here. What I'll do is I'll change the due date of my task, and I'll just do it kind of in the database, in the task database manually. So where is that? It's the NDA review. We'll take the due date here, and we're just going to put it back to January 2020. 22nd of January. Really far, really overdue. Okay. So this is our, where are we? So this is our task tracker here. Okay. Oh, we need to actually change it from completed to new as well. Missed that one. So let's quickly do that. We'll do in progress. It's more realistic. All right. Okay, in progress. Okay, and let's run our overdue check. So first need to just quickly add an action to this, which is our batch process node. For each of the open tasks, run the overdue notification module. Just refresh it quickly. And I think we're going to do this just in time. Overdue notification. We take the ID of the item. Okay, and that's it. So run overdue process or something. Again, we're going to just publish this. Okay, like so, and I'll just run it now. We won't see anything on this screen because I didn't add any front end things. But if we go to here, hopefully if it's worked, there we go. So it's gone to overdue. Now, obviously we don't want to click this button periodically. So this is why this status check module that we have here, okay, we can actually schedule it. So we can actually say every day at 1, or we could even say every hour, every day, every hour. Okay, and then that's now just happening in the background. So it means that any overdue things and any processes that are on a schedule will just run automatically. And this can be done for numerous things, including integrations to, say, DocuSign or something to check for signed documents, etc. All right, I think we just about made it. So I hope that was useful. The session is recorded, so definitely access that. Go back over it if you want to borrow some of these concepts. And of course, we're more than happy to chat if you want to speak to us directly. Okay. Yeah, one question, can we get the recording? Yes, absolutely, we'll publish that. Amazing. Thank you everyone so much for attending. I know it was a lot of info, but we got to the end. It's the most important thing. So thank you very much and see you soon. Bye-bye.